Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. This is a important talk tonight. It has a sort of important value, at least in a personal way for me. And so I decided to, if I was simply asked what enlightenment could be, how would I communicate it? I thought about it, I thought about just the simplest way. And so, because I find we are creatures that use rational methods, that means we care about the data of the world, and what you care about, you tend to manage. And what you manage, you tend to systemize, tend to, in some sense, perceive in multidimensional frameworks. So, if enlightenment could be in some sense pointed towards through language, even though the idea of enlightenment is kind of like the true wonder of how the light in your eyes is being existent. Just a second, guys. I'm doing something on the computer real quick. Okay. Every human being, I'm now speaking about the inner dimensions of the person, they have built it up in different way, as if your mind or the atmosphere of your mind is a house of cards, and the cards are language. For me, there's an enlightenment that has to do with a sort of freedom and a detached awareness of objective phenomena. That means it's as if when you accept the way life moves, you have kind of accepted the cosmos as a dance. That means a dance of known elements and unknown elements. So there's objective contentment through the acceptance of how the world has appeared. But subjective contentment is not that easy, because it has to do with the ability the individual harbors and how much this mind of the individual can actually reveal this ability. It's as if you are a sort of energy packet, this battery, this unique biological battery, and your energetic existence is kind of like a flashlight shining in a certain part of the world. If we wanted to take a mystical approach, enlightenment would in some sense would be in some sense you being a sort of attributeless identification with how the light is being the moment, simply said. The ideological existence of the person changes in texture. Right now you are a self with a certain character and a certain story, and now imagine suddenly the story and the character seem like hallucinations to one another. All existential phenomena suddenly is noticed it's happening in one moment. So there is something grand. Even though we have such an awareness of the macrocosm, I would reframe the whole context of enlightenment in a framework where I would tell you, imagine that you have come into existence. This attention is pretty much the steering wheel, and you are a pilot of your attention. And so where are you piloting your attention, and how is meaning arising from where your attention goes? To be honest, when I realized there were inventors back in the day, I realized something phenomenal. As if they had access to a view of the unknown. It's as if the uncommon eyes of the world is where genius truly lives. Because what is common dies in realness, you know? What is enlightenment? It is a moment. It is a moment that its presence doesn't have to do with its personality. That breath of fresh air of an awareness of the collective field rather than the individual particle is the difference. You see, it's as if through an egoic approach, I wanted to give these Mr.Within talks, I would have given up after the first one. It's as if you will eventually realize life is meant for living. It's as if you're just here doing nothing on this planet, it's as if you have not understood nature. But what do we do? And so our attention, after entertaining individual frameworks of self, will move to the collective. When it moves to the collective, it has different ways of being introduced to the unknown. The secular approach towards the unknown is lifeless. The religious approach to the unknown is kind of buried in unique fixed ideology. And so, to be honest, we are left in a world that our eyes have to see something before they walk. Before, it's as if without seeing the road, it's like the purpose of feet would not make sense. There is somewhere to go. So you see, we got to look at the natural design. So what has been the weird activity going on the surface of this planet? Creatures from a bacterial level of even surviving an apocalypse on a bacterial level. The genes kind of eventually evolved to the sophistication of an ape kind of in a giant metal capsule being kind of taken to work every day. You see, we evolved into our minds, and yet our minds are still unknown. It's kind of like the saddest thing about civilization is not even its external consequences. It's not even extinction. It's what could have been and wasn't. That's simply it. That's the most ultimate regret. What that means is every person's mind, in order to see themselves imperfect, must have a reference of perfection. If that reference of perfection is too external, you're worshiping an idol. It's like, the average, gullible, let's say 16-year-old. I find cultural data is most vulnerable to people when they're young. I find children have to wonder about the world's problems at an early age. There's no other way. We must restructure the educational system, and we must care enough to do so. I want you to imagine that just like how a person can be inside a room, and that room could be inside a bigger room, which is the house where there's many rooms, and how that room can be even in a bigger structure, this infinite progression of endless realities is what our minds are dealing with. It's as if there's two ways, really, there's two crossroads for existence. Either you're going towards infinite expression, or you're going towards non-expression, the empty. This is why I realized I had a fear of emptiness. I had a fear of the joy of the moment leaving. It's like when you're younger, you're trying to hold on to the paradise as long as you can. But at some point, the forces of the world and how the world truly is changes the child into a soldier of their vision. You see, anytime you have effort applied somewhere, there is a sort of attitude evoked. For me, I was thinking, is my personality a belief, or is it a momentary evocation in accordance to my attention and energy? Literally, it's like so easy having a conversation with someone who's tired. They will become incredibly agreeable. The guy just wants to go to sleep, and someone's like, hey man, can you do this for me? He's like, yeah, okay man, I just want to sleep. So there's a sort of agreeableness due to even the energetic level. They can have the species be so lethargic that it doesn't even know it exists. It's so easy to be sold on the artificial if you never care about what's real. And the thing is, what's real is not something that can be dissected on a laboratory table. You cannot dissect emotions and love on a laboratory table. You cannot dismantle it. You cannot reverse engineer how all the drops are now have become the river. It's just evolution's ability to remind man either you're with the world or against the world. And either way is honorable because you choose how far your eyes see. When life has given you, after billions of years, the opportunity for your ancestors' DNA to continue as you right now, You choose how you walk, and you choose how you stand and what you stand for. Language is a technology. I'm telling you, I have my own playful approach to it, but I've seen many philosophers eventually, it's not about their philosophies, it's how much they saw beyond the linguistic simulation. And eventually it's either emptiness or infinity. And both of them are silly. They are too easy. It's so easy to just think there's nothing. It's like you don't have to do anything to think of that like everything is nothing. You know, it's so easy to not be active and have that be a state of meaning. Where in what sky are you placing your meaning in? That is the question. The inner past to outer, it had to adjust to the worlds that were before it that were here before it was born. So no longer there is just the burden of survival, there's the burden of adjusting to all the data. And eventually this has led to some sort of external gladiator arena of resources, and the point that the smartest people are just helping giants play games, and it's not it's the value of civilization is in its efficiency. Pretty much it's like that moment, okay, where evil came to this good that was just chilling, you know, this good civilization, some evil came to it, and the evil's like, why shouldn't I destroy you? And the good civilization said, why should you? You know. And so what it means is the void can stare at anyone. Life can move beyond linguistic reality. Mythology can be born out of normality. Another day of like defeating the greatest beasts in the land. Like, what a boring day. To be honest, we are all a reaction to light that somehow has evolved from the objective to a subjective position. This subjective position has to decide. It has to decide if it wants to dissolve into a technological program, if it wants to maintain itself in nature's program, and where it chooses to go. Your life is so incredible that imagine everywhere you've been. Imagine your mind has those memories. Whether you're conscious of them or not, the life you have lived is accessible to you. People are, when you read a book, you tell me what's going on. It's like ink on a piece of paper. The reader's mind animates the words into a sort of relevant picture to the personality construct of the moment. The teaching, if reality was multidimensional, its greatest teaching would in some sense be observance. You pretty much become the apprentice of infinity, and you become the playful you become the eyes of an eternal being. Like, it's as if somebody said, okay, what's the purpose of an eternal being? Let's say we are souls. What is the point of being a soul? What is the point of it? Right? We realize the fact that there's no point. And what that means is one of the most important concepts to be taught, it should be, it's the language threshold. You know? Parents, when their child has a dream, they should be wary of like how able the child is to communicate. You see, teaching a child to communicate is like giving that children wings. It chooses to engage rather than cower away behind some bunker of belief. And religion does that. Religion even prevents the emotional development of so many people because they feel they're not allowed to have imagination. When you believe you're not allowed to have imagination, what that means is your emotions can only be moved by nature. Lao Tzu has this concept: you must let go of who you are to be who you are meant to be. How profound is that? That literally, even as I'm speaking right now, in this very moment, whatever idea you have, whatever ideological vision is there, you're not that. You're more than that. And it's unknown. And not all of it has been communicated. Carl Jung was just one person attempting to cut the veils of the unknown and the unconscious. Carl Jung has this quote where he says, unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will dictate your life and you will call it fate. Unless you attempt to know yourself, your true self, whatever this intelligence that you are in this moment is, unless you attempt to wonder truly about it, life suddenly gets its divinity in accordance to the internal authorization that your story of life finds itself in. What do I mean by that? That means you are the future's memory. I find that whew, to be honest, the invisible other will personalize once you no longer are a thought. What that means is you kind of realize, just like Tony Stark, how he created this AI robotic assistant, the conscious mind has the attention that is associating as the conscious mind has kind of is looking above the veil of thought and is noticing that because it is not thought, there is a freedom for thought to move in any way. So it's kind of like the moment you don't, it's kind of like a chess tactic for your subjective existence. What do I mean by that? That means like you let the opponent make the first mistake. So you let your mind animate itself prior to you're observing the inner structure. It's nothing to be afraid of because you can only do this realistically when your objective body is stable. When you're no longer bothered how the character in the story of the world animates. Every day it animates anew. Like we're attached to paintings of ourselves when we are too emotional and cannot see the world changes before our feet can take the next step. We are opportunities. We have to hold the average person in high regard and with the ultimate intelligence. I realized I have to see, I have to hope that the most foolish people on this planet are still, there's a hidden genius, a hidden efficient genius behind their eyes, you know? It's kind of like the last calling, as if the spirit of the planet felt humanity was straying, like a child walking alone too far. And so the mother, the Gaian mind, in some sense, looked at the human being and it started sending waves. It started sending echoes. And what that means is you might feel this planet is a rock. You might think it's just a rock. And sure, let's consider that. Let's consider even that to be the ultimate validity. But let's also see what else it could be. And what if it's alive? The opposite. What if the universe has an intelligence that doesn't have a personality, yet it has a heartbeat? What are the wonders of such, such a gaze upon the heavens, It was very fascinating when I studied philosophy in regards to the ancient Greeks, and I kind of got introduced to ancient Greek mythology. It fascinated me. It was incredible. It was like, in some sense, it was incredible because I saw and I was seeing certain archetypes. I was seeing certain patterns, regardless of whoever it was in the mythology, that were representing something that was valid now. It's as if I saw the power of stories to create to keep a certain conceptual atmosphere alive. That's pretty much it. Freedom has to do with the most natural expression. The most natural expression requires the most natural environment. The modern natural environment is not moving towards nature, it is moving away from nature. It is moving towards more programmed way of existence. Our thinking becomes like machines, and then we have no hope. The hope has been kind of planted, has been destructed from the beginning. It's hilarious. This is the whole show, guys. This is my whole analysis of enlightenment. It's theatrics, in accordance to the programs you're raised in, until a moment arises when, strangely, through a sort of inner love, this love is not conditional, it's unconditional. It's as if it's there whether you like it or not. It's just the quality of how the presence of the being is here. You see, this love is not ideological, therefore it has no face. Kind of like the incredible idea the Venetians had, where they had these masquerade parties where it was people's personalities, even though their face was not visible. It was like an incredible atmosphere of speech. Do you know? It's as if regardless of what face the person had, it was their role in that moment that decided their value. In pure stillness and silence, the mind returns to, in some sense, the breath, and you are becoming the space of observance, the attributeless space of observance of this biological phenomena that is being you. You're pretty much becoming slowly aware that you're aware. This awareness is fascinating because it's a shock. Because you're realizing that whether your eyes are open or closed, there's something alive here. It doesn't matter, in some sense, what character we were in the story of the world that forever changes. What matters is, in some sense, how much you saw what you are harboring within, the abilities you're harboring within, and how much you were willing to allow the internal dimensions to risk walking into the external. You know, I see this is the kind of the great things that writers kind of experience, that in some sense it's a part of their mind leaving into and walking alone into the world, into the hands of others. You free yourself from change. And then you strangely realize, oh my God, could it be that the changeless is eternal? It's an attention. The attention, it cannot die because it has no body. It is the whole moment where all bodies are embodied. When you realize you're alive once, when you realize every day happens once, when you realize you have in some sense a kind of brain with a DNA that your ancestors passed down like a beacon of opportunity, wondering if it will make it to the next tomorrow. And so you are here now as a member of your human species, finding what? A war. This war is as savage as the blindness of ideal worship. And what that means is the child finds itself opening its eyes to, in some sense, the external other, which is humanity, other people. You have to honor this. It's a pillar of your civilization. Anyone who deviates from this principle of honoring the external other, it's as if you don't have that in you, you don't even see a world to care for. Your passions through efficient atmospheres and conscious thought, it's as if a single pointedness to anything. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's hilarious. Whether it's just you looking at like the reflection of your face on your phone when it's turned off and it has no battery. You know, you're still holding the phone in your hand and looking at your own reflection. You see, we have evolved towards free will as creatures. And free will's greatest task is to navigate. And so the role of the pilot of consciousness emerges. As a pilot of consciousness, you're pretty much this attributeless attention being the world. You realize your mind is not just generating your physical body, it is also generating the external world. This is a surprising thing that many psychologists, I believe, don't consider. That the child, its mind, before it becomes an individual, subjective individual to itself, is being the world. The mind duplicates the world. And we never see that world. Our mind is a response to it. So what I mean by this is that the child's mind is being the world first, and then from that subjective world, a civilization of teachers will create the greatest atmosphere for a civilization of students, for generations of students to come. That is my only concern. I am kind of like that sage, that kind of like, how would I say it? Like that man with a robe, kind of going at the entrance of this kingdom, which is the educational system on this world. And I am kind of like shouting at the gates, not sure how far my voice will echo, that the educational system is the liberator. It is the only thing that can change the future. And the educational system has to realize there's 8 billion unknown human beings. These human beings, they all have unique viewpoints, unique DNAs. You cannot expect 8 billion unique intelligent beings all adjust to one system of value, of intelligence. It's as if the educational system should hire students to, in some sense, become the explorers of what education truly really means. An educational system that does not breathe alongside its culture will feel isolated towards destruction. What that means is a dying man has every reason to be violent. It's as if there's no guilt because the inevitable has been acknowledged. But the thing is, we all die. So let us not think of death. Because it is like gravity. What are you going to do about it? So what you can do is value at least what is here now. This poet, ancient Persian Sufi mystic poet by the name of Rumi, he says, before death takes away all that is given, give away all there is to give. What that means is you will eventually forget about morality, all those kind of egocentric kind of ideologies of your self-value are going to feel hollow. You're going to see there's a species here that needs to be attended to. And it doesn't have a proper ethos. Its ethos is a war. It's idealism through nationalism, and it's never ending. And I don't even attempt to change it. My idea is that the only thing I'm telling the United Nations is that just meditate on the two words United Nations and come to a resolution. Because as far as I'm concerned, if there was an extraterrestrial or an AI that was here, the AI would analyze all the words human beings are speaking and eventually realize they're kind of like linguistic programs. We are like these biological creatures that through some sort of mysterious electromagnetic relationship with the cosmos. It's awesome, guys. Whenever someone says the word cosmos, it's like you can say, all right, that's deep. We have to wonder about the edge of thought. We have to be a philosopher of our own life. Who else is going to give us that privilege? If freedom is our value, it must begin from the mind. And freedom for the mind could also mean freedom from just a fixed self-definition. I am telling you, this life you get caged in ideology. It's kind of horrific, yet at the same time, I'm like, why is it happening? And I realize it's the language technology we're using. The cost of the evolution of our minds is the savageness of our psychologies. Yet it's kind of like a generation behind. The world has become so filled with various sorts of data that it's like there can be data overload. And what I mean by that is that people can be in such intense environments where they don't even have, just because they have to handle the physical circumstance of life, they don't even have time to wonder about the ideological value of it. It's like the person's like, hey man, have you ever wondered if this idea is a smart idea? And the guy's like, don't talk to me, bro, I'm too busy. You know, the guy was too busy to even hear a smarter idea. Because we are still, believe it or not, this is going to sound hilarious, but every person who says the idea of worship is not real, it's as if every person is, who are you worshiping in the mirror? Who are you living for? The concept of worship, I'm not saying worship, even though worship has led to worships, but I'm saying like, the power of our free will is to resculpt history, to give a permission to the eyes of the future to live in ways that are just efficient. For me, it's as if all morality and ethics can be divided with efficiency, current efficiency, or not. Inefficiency and efficiency. Just this is have this filter literally in every moment of your life. Wonder what is the most efficient thing, what is the least inefficient thing. Because then guilt doesn't arise. And it's not that it's wrong for guilt not to be there. It's like you have to give freedom to your emotions. It's like you cannot have freedom of thought if emotionally you don't feel free as a creature. Emotional freedom has to do with how much the inner child, how much your memory is relating to what is actually here and now. It's like this mind made of memories is a phenomena of the present moment. Guys, sometimes society feels like a video game, you know? Guys, I want to read some quotes for you from this ancient Vedic book, which is called Ashtavakra Gita. And it's some interesting viewpoints from ancient times. It's like this kind of ancient scripture book, you know? So anyways, the quote is, bondage is when the mind longs for something, grieves about something, rejects something, holds on to something, is pleased about something, or displeased about something. So isolation of attention into a certain personality. The Ashtavakra Gita, let's just go into this quote tunnel. I'm just going to read a lot of quotes from this. It says, you do not consist of the elements, earth, water, fire, air, or even ether. To be liberated, know yourself as consisting of consciousness, the witness of these. The Ashtavakra Gita says, all things arise, suffer change, and pass away. This is their nature. When you know this, nothing perturbs you, nothing hurts you, you become still. The Ashtavakra Gita says, if you are seeking liberation, my son, shun the objects of the senses like poison. Practice tolerance, sincerity, compassion, contentment, and truthfulness like nectar. The Ashtavakra Gita says, righteousness and unrighteousness, pleasure and pain, are purely of the mind and are no concern of yours. You're neither the doer nor the reaper of the consequences. You are always free. The Ashtavakra Gita says, for God is infinite, within the body and without, like a mirror, and the image in a mirror. As the air is everywhere flowing around a pot and filling it, so God is everywhere, filling all things and flowing through them forever. The Ashtavakra Gita says, my child, because you think you are the body, for a long time you have been bound. Know you are pure awareness. With this knowledge as your sword, cut through your chains and be happy. For you are already free, without action or flaw, luminous and bright. The Ashtavakra Gita says, recognize that the apparent is unreal, while the unmanifest is abiding. Through this initiation into truth, you will escape falling into unreality again. Just as a mirror exists everywhere, both within and apart from its reflected images, so the Supreme Lord exists everywhere, within and apart from this body. The Ashtavakra Gita says you are really unbound and actionless, self-illuminating and spotless already. The cause of your bondage is that you're still resorting to stilling the mind. Wow, I gotta read you these quotes. So the Ashtavakra Gita, there's another quote that says, "He whose mind does not set out to meditate or act, still meditates and acts, but without an object." That means it's like without conscious force. The Ashtavakra Gita says, "Truly, when one does not know oneself, one takes pleasure in the objects of mistaken perception, just as greed arises for the mistaken silver in one who does not know mother of pearl for what it is." Okay? The Ashtavakra Gita says, "Let the waves of the universe rise and fall as they will. You have nothing to gain or lose, you are the ocean." So, guys, pretty much it seems what enlightenment can be is the ultimate witness of phenomena as the whole moment of being. What else can be said? The inner path to outer peace is a remembrance of a nature that was free before it could not be. You have to figure out how hard your heart is beating for the world, how much you care for this science project after 4 billion years that's here. Eventually your self-liberation will become a collective liberation, because you have to utilize the resources. If we are intelligent as a civilization, we say, okay, there's something here, we got to do something with it. So these 8 billion people have to find sophisticated ways. And so there was this story of the Tower of Babylon. The Tower of Babylon was very profound. The Tower of Babylon was a suggestion that all the human beings in the world were united. And so they were united under one language. And so they all gather around and build this tower towards the heavens so they can reach the heavens where the gods are standing. To, in some sense, attain the whole civilization was attempting to find enlightenment. Imagine an enlightened civilization, you know, that's reaching for enlightenment, a civilization reaching for the ultimate clarity of where the value of the moment is. And so, every moment has a value, but the value has to be seen in it. The Ashtavakra Gita says, "Burn down the forest of ignorance with the fire of the understanding that I am the one pure awareness, and be happy and free from distress." What that means is perhaps it's saying, trust your mind as if you have been it since nature, since you emerged in nature. The Ashtavakra Gita says, "Meditate on yourself as motionless awareness, free from any dualism, giving up the mistaken idea that you're just a derivative consciousness or anything external or internal." Yeah. Eventually that's what it can be, guys. Just you reach beyond the language threshold, so no duality can hold it. Literally the pilot is navigating its attention beyond duality. The true sun of consciousness is not is not a star, is the effort towards clarity. Creative freedom, that is the foundation of civilization. When we ask ourselves why we are alive, what stories come to us, and we see so many different stories can come to us that we feel language is an infinite void. But eventually you're going to realize it's all about just how much the moment is authorized to continue to advance or not to advance. And I think there can be nothing more cooler than a sort of existential confrontation of how your experience is being your moment. As if you're conscious that you're conscious, and there's a great power there kind of brewing. The only direction that thought can evolve to is the whole moment, the ultimate container of all the existential data to the current moment of experience. You see, you paint the picture of what phenomena means. We human beings are realizing we created language out of nothing. Just like the caveman took a rock and a stick or something and like kind of sparked fire, you know? Or maybe I think probably it happened from a thunderstorm and like a burning branch was taken to the tribe or something. You know? But there came the invention of language, the greatest technology mankind has ever built, so great that his identity is based on it. Especially when you go looking for work, you know, the story that emerges in that moment is very crucial to your outcome. So you see, it's as if like civilization is not even built for authenticity, it's just built for result. If you can get the result, you know, good job. Good job. Well, they'll throw you a bigger bone. And of course, I'm being playful. What I'm saying is like everything has a ordered dimension and a savage dimension. When you acknowledge this, your mind becomes dualistically oriented. It's as if you're a martial artist that's kind of mastered your space and movement in your space. Screenshotting a quote for later. Awareness, guys, is present, and awareness of this moment is the ultimate peace. That's it. You're just present here. Ta-da. You sought enlightenment only to realize it's just about how far you are seeing, you know? You care for your mind by, in some sense, exploring and having it, in some sense, attempt at life, just to see various ways it can move, you know? Sri Ramana Maharshi says, where are you now? Where is the goal? What is the distance to be covered? The self is not somewhere far away to be reached. You are always that. You have only to give up your habit, a long-standing one, of identifying yourself with the non-self. All effort is only for that. By turning the mind outwards, you have been seeing the world to the non-self. If you turn it inwards, you will see the self. Spirituality is a playful concept, ultimately. Discover your true self is the only command left for the evolution of the mind. Who you are and who you can be and what the world can be and if it really matters and should we see. It's kind of like this philosopher, this philosophy teacher kind of gave his students this exam where the question was just WHY question mark and each kid wrote an answer. And then the teacher kind of saw their answers and only one of them got it right, you know, and the teacher says that in some sense that guy got it right because he said why not question mark. That's the power, that's the wonder, that's what saves civilization, that's the energy of civilization. In just that viewpoint, why not see what it would be like if everything worked, if we attained a sort of ideological clarity that it's as if our species literally leaps light years ahead of its time, just by just replacing the value of where what life really means. Seldom this is said, but every character written in a novel is the writer's mind. It's attempts at the writer's mind to be something. The writer is kind of like God's design and everything for the character in the story. Sri Ramana Maharshi says, first reform yourself and then it will be time enough to think about the world. How can you help the world until you have helped yourself? There's this quote by Robert Adams. He says, Nisargadatta, he always prayed. He's referring to this other enlightened yogi. He says he realized that he was consciousness, he was self-realized, but at the same time, he chanted, he prayed, he had devotion. It sounds like a contradiction. For you may say, if someone is self-realized and knows himself or herself to be all there is, to whom do they pray? Try to remember that all spiritual life is a contradiction. It's a contradiction because words cannot explain it. Even when you are the self, you can pray to the self, which is you. It's as if he's pretty much saying it's all the mind. It's energy being aware of itself. And there's freedom in that. There's a strange bliss. The bliss of, and how would I say it, an efficient vision, you know? Why not in this lifetime? You just wonder how your greatest collective kind of vision would be as a human being. What if you cared for the civilization where you wondered, okay, how does it update, you know? You are free. Because all that is here is. The dance of matter and space beyond thought. Beyond stories, the moment is its own dawn. It's truly, there is a greater relationship with the intelligence of this world accessible. But it has to do with just self-awareness, pretty much. I personally don't believe in language. I use it as a technology. I don't believe a person can be put in a sentence. That is too cruel, too limiting. Every moment is kind of like an artistic moment. A moment where there's just incredible, an artistic vision that is, how would I say it? It's like, there's a good quote. There's this quote by Jonathan Swift where he says, vision is the art of seeing that which is invisible to others, which means like self-awareness beyond the cultural program or whatever kind of program. I think the ultimate resolution is that the creature just trusts the world that it's happening now, and as it continues, dimensions change and meaning arrives. Much blessings, guys.